Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, September 27th, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Case and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask that the Deputy Clerk note the starting time for the minutes as 7:01 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. And I take note at this hour that Thursday is the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And I invite all who are listening to participate in meaningful ways in that opportunity. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archive video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate or comment is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel tonight and perhaps the archive. Welcome to councillors, staff, and any others who are or will participate in this meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum. I note that I have attendance question mark from Councillor Andreessen. She's not with us, right? So she intended to join us a little bit late. If at all, we'll monitor for her over the course of the meeting. Let's move then to item 2.1 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interests. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item, not words yet, at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already submitted and declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect, if not already done, in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict be perceived during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I'll call first on Councillor Anstett. Welcome, Councillor Anstett. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you this evening, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. Next up is Councillor Behrens. Welcome, Councillor Behrens.
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I will declare a conflict of pecuniary interest on agenda items 5.5.1, the accounts, and 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw, as I have grandchildren attending the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center and after-school programming. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. And next up, I believe, is Deputy Mayor Kellum. Welcome, Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Why, thank you. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, yes, I'd also like to declare pecuniary interest on items 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically Perth Meadows, as my mother and father-in-law are attendants there, as well the daycare, as my grandson attends the St. Mary's daycare. So further on, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And now, are there any other councillors who have not in advance declared in writing and wish to make a statement at this time? Okay, we're not seeing any, so we're going to move forward. Now let's just explain our virtual processes. I'm systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I'll do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have another kick at the can, so to speak, will have to go to the bottom of the list and indicate doing that through the chat function. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I don't believe I can hear you, I'm certainly going to call on you and let you know that I can't hear you. And we also ask all to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, our voting technology, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then please return to mute. That brings us to item 2.2 of our agenda. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows. The agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Now let's start with Councillor Seiler tonight. Will you serve as our mover for that one, Councillor Seiler?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's make sure that eScribe is up and working for all of us. Seeing no intent on discussion, let's have that vote.
Councillor Rothwell, eScribe did not come up. I'm in favor.
Thank you. And with that, we'll call that carried. Let's move then to item 3 of our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's recognition and or action. Grouping them tends to expedite our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion debate and individual action may do so. Tonight, we only have 2 things on our consent agenda, which includes the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion, correction, or action? I don't think we're seeing any. So at this time, then, I have a resolution for consideration. The consent items 3.1 to 3.2 be received for information and the minutes of September 20th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for that?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this one? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to agenda item number 4. At this time, we don't have on our agenda a public meeting of any sort or any delegations that have asked to speak to our council meeting this evening. That allows us to move along to agenda item number 5, reports from departments and key staff. For item 5.1.1, council is invited to update corporate policies related to job vacancy and hiring procedure and to employee recognition. These policy revisions have had input in and endorsement by the Human Resources Committee of Council. I think, is Jen Robinson with us? So I'm going to call on HR Manager Jen Robinson to orient us to the updated policies. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. Tonight, we are bringing forward 2 amendments to human resources policies. The first policy is the job vacancy and hiring policy, and the amendment that's being proposed for that policy is to eliminate an existing clause that's held within it. And that clause reads, an internal candidate will be ineligible for consideration for a temporary position transfer if they are within their probationary period or filling an alternate temporary position. So the purpose of eliminating that clause, or suggesting to eliminate that clause, is that it will allow more flexibility for staff to change positions as opportunities arise. Specifically within our childcare services, we have a lot of part-time staff who may take a temporary position to get more hours, and as full-time opportunities arise, we'd like to allow the flexibility not only in childcare but within the rest of the municipality, job postings for staff to be eligible to participate in those postings. So that would be the proposal for the job vacancy and hiring procedure. And then the second policy coming forward tonight is policy D 2.2, our recognition policy. So this policy guides our staff recognition in terms of years of service, resignations, retirements. And the main adjustment to this policy being proposed this evening is some adjustments to the retirement feature of that policy. So we have taken the opportunity to suggest some amended categories for years of service, as well as slightly amending those values for the retirement functions that we hold for our retiring staff members. So the years of service in the retirement section of that policy currently are 0 to 4 years, 5 to 15 years, 16 to 24 years, and 25 plus. Sorry, Danette, can you just go down one more page? Sorry, one more. There we are. So the categories that currently exist are 0 to 4, 5 to 15, 16 to 24, and then 25 plus. So this evening, we're recommending that those categories be changed to 0 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 19, and then 20 or more years. And the other feature that we're proposing to adjust is the value of the retirement function. Currently, they are not applicable for under 4 years or under, $100 for the second category, $200 for the third category, and then $300 for the fourth category. So we're proposing to increase the value for category number 3 by $50 up to $250, and then increasing the value for the last category up $100. So it would be $400 as the proposed value for that category. The other amendment that we have added is just some more flexibility surrounding what a retirement function can be. And that's really in keeping with the wishes of the retiring employee. So we really want to make it a great experience for them, something that is within their wishes. So really keeping the options for what a retirement function is open. So it could be a cake celebration, it could be a lunch or barbecue, could be an open house. But as long as they're keeping within that value, we would work with them to create a retirement function that really was in their best wishes. The other thing we've added within the policy is that if an employee doesn't want a retirement function, we have an option there for them too, and that is that we would allow them to donate the value of that retirement function to a charity of their choice. And if they wished for a retirement function that was more elaborate than what the policy allows in terms of dollar value, they could choose to use some of their gift towards that retirement function as well. So I would be happy to answer any questions at all about either of those two policy proposals.
Thanks, Ms. Robinson. Council, first comments or questions on this matter? Are we seeing anything for Fairfields? No, we're not seeing anything at this time. So let me lead forward with a draft resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the list of policies as amendments to the Human Resource Policy B-1.1 Job Vacancy and Hiring Procedure and D-2.2 Recognition. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Callum to serve as our mover for that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Jen, for that report. Very good. Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councilor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would definitely second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Let's move on to item 5.1.2. Staff has brought forward a report and policy as requested earlier by council pertaining to corporate COVID-19 vaccination policy. This policy draft has had input in and endorsement from Human Resources Committee of Council. I'll call on CAO Chris Snell for an overview of this agenda item and the proposed action at Council. CAO Snell, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. And as Council is aware, Council requested a report to be brought forward regarding the vaccination declaration for staff and members of Council. One of the things that the organization has dealt with effective September 7th is our Child Services Department is required under Directive 6 to have a COVID immunization declaration policy for all staff within the Children's Services Department. This is a Ministry of Education requirement. For the most part, we have duplicated that vaccination policy that the daycare is required to have for the rest of staff, as well as everyone is aware of. On beginning September 22nd, proof of vaccination was required to access certain public settings and facilities impacting our recreation and public spaces. As you're aware, the health unit is recommending and encouraging all proactive and mandatory vaccination policy for all their employees. So they're recommending all employers have a policy in place. So basically, with certainly the hard work from Jen and the HR committee, we have brought forward the policy. We have had it reviewed by legal counsel, and it will be used to just add an additional preventive safety measure for our employees. We are required under certainly occupational health and safety to provide a safe as workplace as possible. And the policy is in compliance with all applicable public and occupational health and safety, human rights, privacy, and other pertinent laws governing workplaces. So certainly Jen and I are here to answer any questions council may have regarding the vaccination policy.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Council questions or first comments? Okay, at this point, we're not seeing any. So I'm going to put the resolution forward then. Oh, maybe we even know. Councilor Anstead, please.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. Thanks very much, Chris, for the report, and you and Jen for all your work on this. Just had a question on page 7 of 5, just the COVID-19 vaccination declination form. I'm just curious, once this is signed, what's happening next? It's not clear to me.
Ms. Robinson, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Ernstedt. So if a staff member decides to sign the declination form, so therefore they are telling us that they are not choosing to be they're choosing not to be vaccinated, and they haven't brought forward a medical exemption or a human rights exemption, the employee would then need to submit to rapid antigen testing every week. So there would be a mandatory testing component for them to be considered safe to be in the workplace. And they would need to submit to that testing every week. There also would be additional health and safety measures that we would put in place for unvaccinated staff, such as increased masking, the testing, as well as that they also need to complete an education session that we've prepared, giving them the risks, the benefits of vaccination, the side effects, just making sure that they have the whole picture of the pros and cons of vaccination. So in short, we are allowing staff to be non-vaccinated in the workplace, but if they are, they have to test weekly.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Just supplemental, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Okay, so thanks, Jen. That's helpful. Is that listed in another policy? I just didn't see it in this one. Is it in a separate policy? I know this is for vaccination, but
So it's listed under section 4, the mandatory testing. It talks about what will be required if a staff member does not become vaccinated. So the policy is really written as a vaccination or test policy. Is that what you're asking, Neil? Sorry.
yes, no, that's fair. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to add to that too, one of the things that Jen and I recognize is if council adopts the policy tonight, we will be working on implementation more at the staff level to give more of the details how we expect the policy to be unfolded and more into plain language for staff to understand the processes that may result of their choices under the vaccination declaration policy.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thank you for the reports, Chris and Jen. My question is further to Councillor Anstead. My understanding is that if we have an employee or other volunteer or council member that have the declination, is that those rapid antigen tests that are required, that is going to be at their expense. Is that correct?
Can I take this one? So we end up having two categories of employees, ones that are exempt and ones that are choosing not to vaccinate but aren't exempt. So those exempt staff would be a medical reason or a human rights reason. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have staff that are choosing not to vaccinate. So staff who are exempt, we propose that we would cover the costs of those antigen tests, and staff who are not exempt, if we cannot source them for free, would therefore then be required to pick up the cost of them.
Fair enough. Thank you. And one further question, Mayor Todd, deals specifically with earlier request of council regarding our reconvening of in-person meetings. I take it this policy was one of the reasons why we delayed meeting in person until such time as we had this. Is that correct? Thank you.
So certainly I can take this one. So actually, Clerk Bearfelds has prepared the return to regular council meetings policy, but some of the some of her policies were contingent on whether council passed or did not pass this vaccination policy. So depending on what council decides to do tonight, we will have the policy, the council return to council policy back at the probably the next meeting or the one after that for council's consideration.
Thank you.
Who's next? Clerk Bearfields. So I have one question. It wasn't crystal clear to me what the consequences are of an employee who has the declination form and then does not comply with the testing, rapid testing procedure. Could you comment on that, please?
Yes, I can take that one. I'm just going to draw your attention to that part. I'm just making sure that I'm finding it here correctly for you. Sorry, I'm not picking up the piece of the policies that says that, but in my words, sorry, under other, item number 8, so that is page 4 of 5 of the policy. Failure to comply with this policy may result in lost, unpaid shifts, and disciplinary action up to and including termination or employment contract for cause. So if someone is not complying with the policy, so for instance, not submitting to rapid testing, they will lose shifts and not be coming to work.
And just further to that, we would certainly then instigate our disciplinary policy, just like it would for any staff who do not adhere to policy, which basically has a tiered approach to discipline. So quite often that would include, as Jen stated, suspensions and potential termination if adherence to policy was to continue.
Should we be more explicit about that notion that other corporate policies, including, I assume there's something similar to the title disciplinary policy, should that be explicitly mentioned there?
We could certainly refer to the disciplinary policy if council's comfortable with that amendment.
Thank you. Any other questions or first comments? Or I have a resolution then for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the COVID-19 vaccination policy with an effective date of September 28th, 2021. That's tomorrow. Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our mover for that?
I would gladly move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell, will you be our seconder?
I'll second the motion. Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Okay. Thank you, Council. Next up is item 5.1.3. In this, Council is updated on the status of our contract for policing services with the Ontario Provincial Police. Our contract agreement with the OPP expires December 31st, 2021, and staff has proposed a one-year extension with contractual provisions remaining largely the same. This is an interim move since, as I understand it, there will be new contractual negotiations that will result in 2022 as a result of the new Community Safety and Policing Act expected to come into effect early in 2022. This action, an amending agreement to the existing contract, has been recommended to us by the Police Services Board. CAO Snell, did you want to offer a few comments just to help us understand this one?
Thank you again. And certainly as mentioned by the mayor, our contract expires December 31st of this year. Under the new Community Safety and Policing Act, all contracts will become null and void once the act is proclaimed and given royal assent. And under the new act, there will actually be no future contracts. Municipalities will, like North Perth, will be able to enter into what they're calling agreements for enhanced services. So it'll be much different than the contract. And the big change since our last contract has been the OPP billing model. So the OPP billing model will continue under the new act. And then if a municipality wants enhancements like a staff sergeant and detachment administration clerk, they will just sign an agreement with the OPP to provide those services. So in the meantime, while the act is receiving royal assent, the OPP is offering us two options. One is signing an amending agreement, which will extend the existing contract for 1 year, or the other option is to enter into a new contract, which frankly, I would say is just more or less redundant at this point, unless we really feel that the new act is not going to come into power. But all things I have been led to believe that is not likely to happen. So as the mayor stated, I reported to the Police Services Board at their December 15th meeting, and they recommended the amending agreement. And if that is a direction provided by council, an amending agreement will come to a future council meeting for council to ratify the amending agreement to extend the contract for 1 year. Happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, Mr. Snell. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Are we seeing anything? Oh, okay. So I have a resolution then for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes signing of an amending agreement between the Province of Ontario and the Municipality of North Perth for the provision of police services that will extend the current agreement until December 31st, 2022. Might not even last that long. Councillor Anstead, would you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Snell, I just want to ask about the horizon ahead here. The implication is that with the proclamation of the act, there will be a standard service agreement that's sort of uniform across every municipal government that elects to be serviced by the OPP. Is that the way to look at this?
That's my understanding, both from ministry staff and the OPP. I'm not sure that they've actually got that agreement worked out yet. And I'm sure that's one reason why there's no exact date for the new act coming into full force and effect. But my understanding is it will be a much simpler agreement than the current contract, but it will be standardized for any municipality requesting enhanced services from the OPP.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or debate? Right, duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you, CAO Snell and the team from your group. Next up is item 5.2, reports from the Clerk's Department. As item 5.2.1, Council is invited to give its opinion to the County of Perth on a land planning matter in Atwood pertaining to an official plan amendment to permit the conversion of a built space outside of the primary residence into a second residential unit on the lot. I have to confess, Council, this matter is quite interesting to me since the current official plan prohibits such conversions in buildings younger than 5 years old, a provision I believe is unnecessary and which I have asked for a report on in my duties as a county councillor to see if we can eliminate that provision. I'm going to call on Mr. Sean Yilmaz, the planner dedicated to North Perth files at the County of Perth, for his comments on the matter. Mr. Yilmaz, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council. The property owner is requesting an amendment to the County of Perth official plan to permit the establishment of a second dwelling unit within an accessory building, and that is less than 5 years old. The subject property is located in North Perth at 168 Fisher Avenue in Atwood. The property is located toward the north end of the court and contains an existing single detached dwelling and an accessory building currently used as a detached garage. The County of Perth official plan permits second dwelling units, which are self-contained residential units. However, as Mayor Kaysenberg had mentioned, Section 6.3a of the County of Perth official plan requires that second dwelling unit it may be permitted in a accessory building, provided that the building is more than 5 years in age. The accessory building on this property was completed in December of 2019, and the building permit was first issued in December of 2016. The accessory building has a total floor area of approximately 167 square meters, or 1,800 square feet, and the accessory residential use is proposed to encompass 111 square meters or 1,200 square feet of the existing structure. In 2012, Bill 140, the Strong Communities Through Affordable Housing Act, released by the province, authorized the use of second units in Ontario. Municipalities were required to authorize second units in their official plans and their zoning bylaws. In 2014, the County of Perth initiated OPA number 142 in response to Bill 140, which implemented the current second dwelling unit policies identified as Section 6.3a of the County of Perth official plan, and included criteria that the accessory structure must be at least 5 years old. In reviewing the staff reports associated with the County of Perth official plan amendment OPA 142, discussion regarding the 5-year requirement for an accessory structure seemed to be non-existent. Now, at that time, however, requirements that limited development in accessory structures was common because it was perceived that using an existing structure to accommodate a second unit was less intrusive than permitting a new structure to accommodate the dwelling. Now, more recently, in 2019, Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choice Act, made amendments to the Planning Act, which replaced the legislation authorizing second units with what is now called additional residential units, or ARUs. The biggest change is now dwellings are permitted up to 2 ARUs on a lot where there is a primary residential unit. These ARUs are part of the provincial government's response to Ontario's housing crisis. The release of Bill 140 and Bill 108 has highlighted the importance of accessory dwellings as a tool to help housing affordability. The updated language of Bill 108 includes policies that aim to make the establishment of second dwellings or ARUs more achievable and with less restrictions. The current policy to limit ARUs in accessory buildings only when the accessory building is at least 5 years old is an example of policy that is restrictive and not aligned with provincial interest. In response to the rise of these limiting policies in existing official plans and zoning bylaws, the province's new policies through Bill 108 and the regulations through OREG 29919 states that where the use of an additional residential unit is authorized, an additional residential unit is permitted regardless of the date of the construction of the primary residential unit. While the province directed the new regulation to the age of the primary dwelling, it is equally important to remove limitations where the age of the accessory structure is preventing this form of housing, given that it is generally regarded as one solution for the lack of affordable housing and variety in housing types that is in need and demand in our communities. The applicant proposes a second dwelling unit within a structure that is 2 years old, which meets the intent of Bill 140 and Bill 108, as well as the County of Perth official plan to provide opportunities for additional dwelling units in order to provide additional forms of housing and potentially more affordable housing options. As such, it is staff's recommendation that North Perth Council recommend that County of Perth Council approve OPA 200 to remove the 5-year requirement to permit the establishment of a second dwelling unit within the existing accessory building on the subject property. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gomez. Questions and first comments? Let's start with Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, Sean, I'm a little bit confused by the report because it says that Bill 108 says that there is no time limit anymore. And the only reason that they're technically looking at an OPA, my understanding the way the report reads, is because the detached garage is less than 2 years old. I guess my question to you is it Perth County's intention that anyone who wants to move in this direction of ARUs, whether in the residence or an accessory building, will have to keep doing an OPA until the county changes the policy? Because, like you mentioned, it currently does not align with the provincial policy. So, is my understanding correct? Question one. And question two is, why is the county simply not making an adjustment to the official plan so that everyone coming up in the future, like this applicant, will not have to make an application simply because of the time frame of the build of the structure? Thank you.
Let me jump in just quickly, Councillor Burns. That is exactly what I've asked staff at the county to do. The council did approve a motion from planning staff to figure out how we can squash that provision 6.3A. And we're just waiting on it till the next county council meeting. So there is going to be action, or at least proposed action, brought forward to the county council table to address this, because I think, like you, the ridiculousness of having homeowner after homeowner having to apply for an official plan amendment is clear and not reasonable. Mr. Yilmaz, do you want to sort of take up the rest of this?
Yes, for sure. Thank you. And it is an absolutely, it's a great question. And it's something that has been discussed internally. I think originally the idea was that the new County of Perth official plan would have updated policies, and that we could have aimed to have that new official plan just in effect at this point, and not have to go through an official plan for the current policies. But as we're all kind of aware, the new county official plan is not yet approved. And we are getting these questions more and more. And as Mayor Kasenberg has mentioned, it is a conversation that has made its way to the planning department about looking at amending the current official plan policy. So a report will be going to county council in tandem with this one, and which would be looking at the option of making that amendment to the County of Perth official plan. So there is some considerations that will need to be considered, but that would come through a staff report to actually amend the overall policy and not just with this site specific at this time.
Supplemental to that, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you, Sean, for your explanation, but I'm still a little bit, I think the county should have been on this and made movement to have it changed before it was brought up by a county councillor. Clearly, it was 2019. We know what the issues of housing and affordable housing and attainable housing and that is in our area. One would expect that there should be more applications, or one could hope that there would be more applications. But for this particular applicant, they're paying for something because our Perth County official plan does not align with policy from the province. So I guess in that case, I would hope that some resolve will be made to the applicant if the county actually does change it, that they aren't paying for an official plan that should have been done prior to them making application. I guess those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Burns. I completely agree with you. Who's next? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks, Mayor Todd. I concur with Councillor Behrens and yourself, Mayor Todd, in terms of the importance of the county itself moving forward to amend these policies to be in line with the most recent bill of 2019. And I would also concur with Councillor Behrens in terms of reimbursement of application fee on the basis of this individual application. And I would, at an appropriate time, be prepared to move a modified motion, including those two items. But the last point I want to address with Planner Yilmaz is dealing with the building code. And are there specific changes or discussions that have happened with the building department with respect to ensuring that the the conversion of this detached accessory structure comply with building code requirements for residential occupancy as opposed to non-residential? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I can't recall if the applicant has spoken with the building department specifically on this on this proposal. My understanding is that they have discussed this, but this has been going back for several months now, so I would really have to go back to be comfortable to say for sure that they've chatted about it. However, any conversion would be subject to a building permit from the building department, in which they would need to meet the code at that point.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Council. I think to Councillor Rothwell's comment, I want to urge just a little bit of patience. County staff will bring forward a report about this matter, and that certainly I've heard, and I know that Deputy Mayor Kellum and Councillor Duncan have heard your concerns about this particular file as well. And I would say I have every intention, and I'm sure Doug and Matt do too, to advocate that we get this right and perhaps fix the fee issue paid for by this individual, because we need to move this along. So if I might suggest a little bit of patience, your county council representatives will, I think, do their part. Deputy Mayor Callum, you agree? We'll do our part there.
I do agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I have a resolution for our consideration, certainly open to amendment if you feel strongly beyond what I've just said, but let's consider the draft here. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled Application for County Official Plan Amendment Number 200 by Lucas, Lauren, and Robin Lovell, dated September 20th, 2021, affecting lands described as Lot 15, Registered Plan 565, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 168 Fisher Avenue, Atwood, prepared by the planner for information, and that the Municipality of North Perth Council recommend the County of Perth Council to approve Official Plan Amendment Number 200 by Lucas, Lauren, and Robin Lovell, affecting lands described as Park Lot, P-Lot 15, Reg Plan 565, Elmo Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 168 Fisher Avenue, Atwood. Like reading the phone book again. Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder on that one?
Yes, I'll second that, Mayor Todd. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell, do you want that amendment, or do you want to leave us a little bit of license on this one? Councillor Rothwell?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Todd. License is fine as long as County Council, Perth County Council understands the importance of moving forward with this matter sooner rather than later. I can say that as being part of the Affordable Housing Task Force, Mayor's Task Force, we had talked about any and all amendments required to ensure that we are creating more affordable housing and basically trying to reduce the barriers to that. This is a recommendation that speaks directly to that. I know that the county does have a task force or a committee on that as well. Frankly, it's the time for action, and it's the time for action was some time ago, and better sooner than later. But I mean, if our 3 members of county council have the ability to express the desire of at least this councillor, and I think most of council, if we probably ask council and our community, then fine. Otherwise, I would suggest we could incorporate that just to put an exclamation point. But I'm satisfied that our county councillors should be able to convey this important message through to county council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And I think there's fairly strong will based on the comments made by other county councillors at that meeting when this matter of requesting a staff report to address this 6.3A occurred. There was fairly uniform support for seemingly receiving the staff report and an acknowledgement that there's a problem. So, but I'd be happy if you think we should add an extra call in here. We could say, and that the Municipality of North Perth Council advocates to the Council of the County of Perth to adjust its policies to permit second units in houses in what's the term I'm looking for? In secondary structures that are that is fully compliant with the province's directions. Something like that. It does strengthen our hand. I won't disagree with you, Councillor Rothwell, that it would strengthen our hand if we had in the council amendment that was in, or motion that went to the Perth County Council. Councillor Rothwell, let's start with you.
I'd be prepared to make that amendment to strengthen that hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barnes, did I see your hand up too?
Certainly.
Okay. Okay, let me just make a note of where we're going with this. Sorry, it takes a few minutes for the brain to work here. Okay, I think it reads like this. And the Council of the Municipality of North Perth calls on the Council of the County of Perth to amend the official plan regarding additional residential units to conform with provincial guidance in Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choices Now. Does that sound okay to you, Clerk Fairfields? She's nodding her head. Anyone see any flaws in that? Do we want to be more explicit and talk about section 6.3A? Are we good just leaving it like this and then we've made our intent? No. Okay, so I'm seeing some nodding heads, which is great. Right. Let's call it then. Councillor Rothwell, I assume you're going to move that amendment.
I so move.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Behrens, you've chimed in here, so will you be our seconder for this one?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So we have an amendment on the floor to the resolution, which has been duly moved, but let's deal with the amendment now. That we add an amendment that reads, in the Council of the Municipality of North Perth call on the Council of the County of Perth to amend the official plan regarding additional residential units to conform with provincial guidance in Bill 108. Did you want at all to add the notion of relief of the cost of this application to these ratepayers? Anyone want to take that step as well? Or do you want to leave that to your county councillors to find out? Not seeing any strong opinions. Is anyone raising their hand here? Okay, so let's just leave it as it is then. So on the amendment, council, any discussion or further debate on this one? Okay, I don't think we're seeing anything. I'm hoping that Deputy Clerk Beer is up with us. So on the amendment, we need to vote to add this amendment to the original motion. Deputy Clerk Beer, if you're ready for us, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. Councillor Rothwell, you scribed didn't come up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And okay, so that's carried unanimously. So let's turn back to the full motion now. We're talking about there's two that's and there's two and that's, including the one we just approved to add to this. Any discussion or debate on the entirety of this action? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Fairfields? No. Okay, let's have that vote then.
I'm in favor as well. I'm restarting eScribe. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have 9 out of 9 votes in favor, so we'll call that carried as well. Thank you very much, Council. An interesting matter that surprised a lot of us, including the warden. The warden and I have had a significant conversation on this item, and he too was surprised by that provision. Mr. Yilmaz, thank you for your work. We appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to item 5.3, reports from the programs department. We have no reports coming from that department this evening. We know they are working diligently on many things at this point. Next then is item 5.4, reports from our facilities department. Again, no reports here, but we know as well that they're working hard. I assume that pool takeouts is on the agenda at this point, and that arena management is the focus as well. So let's move on to reports from our finance department as item 5.5. As item 5.5.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of this day, September 27, 2021. I note again for those watching this that some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item. and will absent themselves from consideration and voting. Councillors who are participating, are there any questions about this report for our staff? All right, let me pull the resolution. Try not to be numbers dyslexic here. That the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total at the bottom line is $1,896,168.86. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I would certainly move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 5.5.2. Council is invited to provide input into the 2022 budget policy, which has some changed provisions from previous years and which includes a list of dates for key budget milestones for our work on this year's budget. I believe Ms. Belfour, our Deputy Treasurer, who leads the budgeting process from the staff perspective in the organization, is with us tonight, and we invite her to take the floor and offer any comments. Ms. Belfour.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, Council. So before I use the 2022 budget policy, as indicated with the new date changes, as well as there has been an update to the ranking categories. Last year was our first year with the capital project ranking system in place, and it went very well. Council, I know at the time felt that there needed to be a couple of changes with regard to the categories. So we met the budget chair and vice chair, myself, and a few other staff members, and reviewed this. We removed the lack of capacity as a criteria and moved it into existing asset condition and capacity. With that, there was a change in the scoring, which you can see as part of the report. And we just felt that that was the best fit and can move forward with that kind of ranking. As you know, we are going through several changes corporately with regard to our new chart of accounts and our new budget software. With the sheer number of accounts this year, it has been quite a process, and we are a little bit behind schedule with regard to getting those finalized. Actually, senior staff received the full template today for review, so that was quite exciting to get that out to them today. Having said that, we are a little bit behind, so we are planning on moving forward with the first two budget meetings, similar to last year's process and look. And we are continuing to update the chart of accounts with the new budget software at the time that allows. Once staff have reviewed the new chart of accounts, we'll move forward accordingly. The chart of accounts is the foundation of all of the new programs that we are going to be running and finances as we move forward as an organization. So it's crucial we get that chart of accounts finished off and in the best fashion that we can as a structure as we move forward. To encourage better contractor vendor pricing for optional operational and project works, department heads find that circulating tender forms and quote requests early in the year results in the best contract pricing. Therefore, staff is requesting council approve a circulation of quotation and other costs request conditional on budget approval by council. So at the time, I would like you to approve both the budget policy as well as the circulation of bid documents for 2022. Any questions or concerns? I entertain those at this time.
Thanks, Ms. Belfour. Councillors, any questions or first comments on this matter? Yeah, I see that. Let's have Councillor Rothwell first.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Becky and your staff for the report. I think this is crucial for us moving forward. I'm pleased to have had conversations with Becky regarding the report, as well as our Vice Chair, Andreessen, for the Budget Committee. I just want to emphasize again, because on Schedule A of the attachment, Tuesday, October 6th at 7 o'clock is our budget meeting. So I'll say it now instead of waiting to the end, but if you could just mark that all on your calendars, and then you'll see that full listing of the other 5 meetings on Wednesdays coming forward for the proposed meeting dates and times. So thanks again to Becky and her staff, and it cannot be understated the amount of work and effort that our staff as well as our consultant are doing in terms of building that firm foundation for all of our accounts, and the conversion from the huge number through to a more manageable amount that's actually going to help us moving forward. So thanks, Becky, for your work, and I look forward to moving this matter forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Who's next? Fairfields. Councillor Barons is next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just on that point about Tuesday, October 6th, are we certain that that is not Tuesday, October 5th? Perhaps I'm looking at a wrong calendar, but for 2021, I do believe that
That
it
should
is.
be Wednesday, yes.
Oh, it
That
should be Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay. So all of the meetings will be on Wednesday.
I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for clearing that up. I'm glad you're paying attention to the details there, Councillor Barons. That's helpful. Anything else besides CAO Snell? I think he wants to offer comment. CAO Snell, did you want to offer comment?
Thank you, Mayor. And if Clerk Bearfelds could bring up the ranking system schedule, just a comment and maybe a potential consideration of council. And again, I know this is sort of always a work in progress, but reading when approving the report, I wondered the monitored complaints received by staff and council. When thinking about this, I wondered if that too also should be, those 5 points should be just put into the existing asset condition and capacity, because I was trying to think of a customer or complaint by residents that wouldn't deal with the existing asset condition or service capacity of the asset. And I would just suggest that that ranking system become 30, and we could include that as a bullet point under there as complaints received by staff or council. Just something I wondered if council wanted to consider.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Maybe we'll ask for comments from Mr. Rothwald, who's the chair of the budget committee. Did you, are you amenable to a small change there in that?
Thanks, Mayor Todd. And we had reviewed this as the committee with staff, and then staff had looked at them all. And I personally don't have any issue in terms of moving the monitored complaints over to the other existing asset condition or capacity, as long as it's specifically listed, because I think the issue is that we want to make sure it didn't get lost, and we did bring it forward from previous ones, but I'm certainly amenable to that if the rest of council and staff are. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So let's turn to the rest of council. Do any of you have vigorous objections to merging, as per CAO Snell's suggestion, the last column and the 5 points of that with the one about capacity and condition pursuant to pulling over the definition about number of complaints and so delegations into that category as part of the new criteria, the updated criteria? Anyone really opposed to that? Are we seeing anything in the chat window, Clerk Berfels? Okay, so I think then that council is amenable to that based on what I'm hearing. Sounds reasonable. Okay, any other questions or comments on this matter? I I have a resolution for our consideration at this time. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the 2022 budget process policy as amended. A copy of the budget policy and Schedule A are attached for reference, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorize department heads to circulate bid documents for 2022 operational and project works prior to budget approval to be conditional on council approval of the 2022 budget. Councillor Rothwell, strangely, you're up in the alphabetical order. Will you serve as our mover for this one?
Absolutely. Yes, as amended with the corrections that council had in terms of the attachments, both the date of Wednesday, October 6th, as well as the modification of the table. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to tag those two words in there as amended in the end of the first clause. Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you be our seconder for that?
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate now? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Good work, Ms. Belfour, to our budget committee. Thank you to Chair Rothwell and Vice Chair Andreessen for getting us the right framework to get going. And I look forward to our work on this on Wednesdays, starting on the 6th of October. Thank you very much. Okay, let's turn now then to reports from the Manager of Environment. We don't have any reports there this evening, but we know that they're looking out for us and working hard. And there's been lots of water flushing and so forth lately. So we know that things have been busy. Let's turn to, and we thank them. Let's turn to item 5.7, reports from our Manager of Operations. Tonight, for item 5.7.1, Council is provided with an opportunity to award the tender to Toromont for a planned purchase of a new backhoe. I think I'm inviting our procurement specialist, Mr. Josh White, to make comments he believes will support our understanding. And I also believe Mr. Couch, our Manager of Operations, may be with us. So let's start with Mr. White. And if we have questions that draw Mr. Couch in, we'll call Mr. Couch. Mr. White, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. On September 1st, the Municipality of North Perth Public Works Department issued a request for tender for a new backhoe. The tender closed on September 17th, and 3 tenders were received. The low tender being Toromont Cat for $150,838. The low tender was reviewed by Public Works staff who deemed the unit specifications met the tender's requirements. The department also elected to proceed with an optional tilting ditching bucket attachment for an additional $6,395, which also was the lowest price among the submitted tenders, bringing the total for the unit plus the attachment to $157,233 below the amount allocated in the 2021 capital budget. Toromont Cat indicated that the unit will be delivered within 8 to 20 weeks, depending on availability, and Public Works Department will be disposing of the old unit by the means of auction. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thanks, Mr. White. And I understand Mr. Couch is not with us at this moment, but we're glad to have you with us. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution then for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award tender NP 011-21T, supply and delivery of a new backhoe to Toromont Cat for the tendered amount of $157,233, not including HST. Councillor Anstead, can I call on you to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That bumps us along to the next item on our agenda, 5.8. We don't have a report from the fire department this meeting, which allows us to move on to item number 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees? Again, the usual process of drawing the attention of the chair is requested should you wish to participate in item 6. Felts, do we have any indication there? Nope, we're not seeing anything there. That allows us to bump along to item 7. We have received no additional items of correspondence that require our attention or action, which means we come to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider bylaws. As item 8.1, council is invited to consider the draft of a new bylaw to regulate the use of off-road vehicles in North Perth. We've had a few kicks at this can. I think I'll call on Clerk Bearfeld's. Okay, so Clerk Bearfeld's is advising me in the chamber that she's amended it as per the inputs from our last meeting, at which council gave her a couple of suggestions. And so now we're asking to make sure that council is satisfied that she's been true to that guidance. But otherwise, we have this bylaw for our consideration. Any questions or first comments on this, further comments on this from council? Clerk Bearfelds, are we seeing anything? We're not seeing anything. Jump up and down if you need to. Okay, so not seeing any indication, then I'm going to read the enabling part of the bylaw. Bylaw number 77-2021, being a bylaw to permit and regulate the use of off-road vehicles, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that, and I'd like to thank Pat for all her hard work on that bylaw. It looks wonderful.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I wholeheartedly agree. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
And yes, I will second it and echo Councillor Duncan's comments. Well done, Pat. Thank you.
There's a lot of love for Pat here, of course, as always. Thank you. Any discussion or debate, council, on this one? Seeing none, then let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Is it okay to say woohoo? Pat says it's okay to say woohoo. Thank you, council. That is unanimously carried. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing anything. That allows us to move on to item 10 on our agenda. Generally, our good news section. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Ken, you can queue up to speak by using the chat window function, councillors or staff. Are we seeing anything, Clerk Bearfelds? Okay, thank you. That means we can move to agenda item number 11. We do not have any matters for consideration in closed session meeting of council this evening, which means that we can also skip past item 12 on our agenda. There's nothing to report on this time. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have the draft for a confirmatory bylaw number 101-2021. Means we've passed more than 100 bylaws this year. That's interesting. Which reads as follows. That bylaw number 101-2021 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you do seconding duties?
I will most certainly do seconding duties for that one.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Remembering, of course, that a few of our colleagues abstain on this because of their earlier declarations, let's have that vote.
Councillor Rothwell, I'm in favor. The motion didn't come up. Thank you. Anish.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And with that, we have the 6 that we expected to vote on that, so we'll call that carried. Wow. Okay, so that brings us to that magical moment of adjournment. Councillors, we've completed the deliberations and taking action on the business that came before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 8:17 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, October 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our mover for that?
I'm so moving.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you be our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. And that one's not debatable, so let's have that vote. I assume that
I'm in favor.
I was going to say we're waiting on Councillor Rothwell. Technology problems. All right. So with that, that is carried. This meeting is thus adjourned, and we will meet again next regular meeting, again using digital enabling technologies, Monday, October 4th, 2021. Councillors, thank you for a good meeting. I wish you a great week, and we'll see you again a week from now. Take care.